the way down over his ears, some hair is
Following
going
day,
to show.
December 8th, he was sentenced.
In the year 1976, 46 years ago, Virgil Presnell was sentenced to death for the murder. Welcome to the Death Row and Executions channel. I'm Paco Rivera. Benjamin Robert Cole is said to have grown up as a child in a horrible environment. Both of his parents were addicted to drugs and were alcoholics. One report states that his mother abused alcohol and drugs while she was pregnant with him. He grew up in extreme poverty. He and his siblings were abused physically, psychologically, and sexually throughout childhood. And Benjamin Cole began drinking alcohol when he was just a child. However, even though that report also states that Cole had been suffering from paranoid schizophrenia since he was a teen, and that during his 20s he had spent time homeless and addicted to drugs, another report shows that he was accepted and served time in the Air Force when he signed up for the military. Now, I don't know when that happened because there is a report of Benjamin Cole's prior criminal history showing that in 1984, in California where he was living, 18-year-old Benjamin Cole, 18 years old, the age that most people start signing up for the military, had been convicted of aggravated child abuse. The injuries in that case were committed by him on his 6-month-old son. So by this time, he'd already had a child. And that those injuries consisted of a cigarette burn to the eyelid, bruises on the head, other bruises to the arms and torso, bruising to the genitals, and a broken ankle. And he served time in jail for that. By December of the year 2002, now 37-year-old Benjamin Cole was married to a woman named Susan Young, and they had a 9-month-old daughter together named Brianna. Cole's wife Susan is listed in documents as an American Indian, and the home that the couple lived in and shared at 320 South Moore Avenue in Claremore, Oklahoma, is reported to be located on free land within the Cherokee Nation Reservation. So for a while, there was a question as to whether the state of Oklahoma even had jurisdiction in the case that we will be discussing here. On the 20th of December, Benjamin Cole was seated at home playing video games, and his wife Susan was doing laundry and other chores around the house. Their daughter Brianna was in a crib in a room, and at some point she began crying, as babies will do. And the crying got so bad that it was seriously interfering with Cole's video game. Now, it's not clear from reports why Cole's wife Susan hadn't gone over to attend baby Brianna. Maybe she didn't hear it from the location she was at, or she was too busy with her chores and allowed her husband to go handle it. But later that evening at the Claremont Police Department, Benjamin Cole would later tell investigators that he had paused the video game and went into the room to calm her down, baby Brianna. He would ultimately confess to authorities that he was unable to get the child to stop crying. He said that Brianna was lying on her stomach and he wanted to flip her over so that she is lying on her back, believing that would help her to stop crying. Benjamin Cole grabbed the baby by her ankles and pulled them toward the back of her head to flip her over. Now, as disturbing as that may sound, just imagine for a moment what he did. He may have thought that by flipping the baby over, he could get her to stop crying. So he grabbed onto her ankles. He says, remember that the baby is lying on her stomach. Cole says he pulled her feet toward the back of her head, toward the back of the child's head, and kept pulling until she was flipped over onto her back. This would mean that at about halfway through this act, he had the baby folded in half. Yes, baby Brianna had stopped crying at that point, but by that point, she was almost dead. Benjamin Cole then returned to another room and continued playing video games. He admits that he had played 2 more games when his wife Susan went into the room to check on Brianna, and she called out to him to tell him that Brianna doesn't look well. There's something wrong with her. He went back into the room and told his wife that the baby looked fine. After more time had passed, Susan went to check on her daughter again and told her husband that Brianna had now turned blue and there was foam coming out of her mouth. Benjamin Cole went into the room and finally, he told his wife to go ahead and call 911. Medics that arrived on the scene said that Benjamin Cole was attempting to perform CPR on the toddler. However, baby Brianna was dead. One report I read from an anti-death penalty source stated that the child died soon after arriving at the hospital. But that's not true. Maybe they're trying to minimize the gravity of the situation. The case file shows testimony from the medical examiner that the child would have died within minutes of sustaining such an injury. The medical examiner testified that the injury the toddler sustained would take a great amount of force and a deliberate force for such an injury to occur. He further testified that we're talking about basically folding the back in half. The medical examiner also said that the baby's aorta was stretched until it was completely torn into 2 pieces. He said that the injuries were not the result of an accident, but were the result of tremendous, deliberate force. The child's mother, Susan Young, was eventually charged with child abuse in failing to seek immediate medical attention, knowing that her daughter was not well for an extended period of time. It should be noted that Benjamin Cole and Susan Young lived in a home that was about a block away from a hospital. The Claremont Indian Hospital was just a few steps away. Susan Young served 13 years in prison and was released in 2017. Benjamin Cole is scheduled for execution in Oklahoma on October 20th of this year. A clemency hearing for Benjamin Cole took place this past September 27th. Defense lawyers argued that Cole suffers from mental illness, paranoid schizophrenia, and brain damage. The clemency board, however, decided that Cole is the same person he was 20 years ago and voted 4-1 against clemency. A detective of the Claremont Police Department interviewing Benjamin Cole on the day of his daughter's death reported that at the start of the interview, Cole was informed that the medical examiner had ruled the death as a homicide, and that it would appear that the only concern Cole had, just hours after knowing that his daughter was dead, was how many years in prison he was going to get. If you would like to see more of these death row stories, please subscribe so that you are alerted when the next one comes out. I'm Paco Rivera. Bye.